Welcome to the Anchored Podcast. Have you ever wondered how to stay grounded in your faith amid heartache, confusion, and a seemingly mass exodus of people leaving the faith? My name is Roseanne Dawes.
And I'm Stephanie Frankham. And we've discovered that being anchored in Jesus Christ is the key to navigating these rough waters. Join us as we explore how their faith and covenants have helped each of our guests navigate the storms of life.
People keep asking me what my new book is actually about. And basically, what it covers is 18 lessons that I have learned as I have had loved ones that have left the church. And these are things. So, the name of the book is Pearls from the Prodigal. Become the kind of person they'll want to come home to. This is what the cover looks like. And it basically, let me just give you a little bit from the back. When someone you love leaves the faith, what now? The heartache is real, and the relentless questioning can shake your foundation. Like a pearl layered through heartache, surrender, and love, Pearls from the Prodigal offers hope drawn from Stephanie's own journey. These aren't quick answers. They're hard-won insights polished through divine wrestling and deep prayer. You'll discover why faith is more than black and white, how to listen beyond words, how to trust God with the outcome, how to make Jesus, not fear, the center of your story, and why love is always the safest way home. This book isn't about changing others. It's an invitation to become the kind of person they'll want to come home to. The books are $18 a piece, plus shipping if you are not local. The pre-orders only go through September 6th, which is this coming Saturday. And I will likely only be doing one print run, which is why I have to get all of the ordering in now so we can get it going. If you would like a copy for you, or you know somebody who is struggling this way and you'd like to get a copy for them, reach out to me at francomstephanie@gmail.com, FRANCOMStephanie@gmail.com, and let's get you hooked up. Let's go ahead and move on to this episode of the Anchored Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Anchored Podcast.
We are so excited to introduce you to our guest today. This is Richie Steadman from the Cultural Hall Show.
That's right. He informed us it is not a podcast, it is a show. So you listen to him, you probably have listened to him, and we are just so glad that he's willing to just share his story with us today. And so Richie, go ahead and just kind of give us a little tidbit about you, but then also about your show.
Sure. Well, I would tell you, first of all, about me. I am a lifelong member-ish of the church, and I say that because for the majority of my 20s, I was excommunicated and then came back to the church. But was baptized at 8 years old. Parents were both members of the church, that kind of thing. I am a podcaster. I am a podcast consultant. I'm a wedding DJ. I used to be a radio producer and radio host. I have worked at BYU. Now I just currently work for myself, doing the Cultural Hall Show as part of what I do, and then helping people have great times at big events in their life, mostly weddings, but sometimes it's baptism parties, or they have graduation parties, or any sort of thing. If you want to party and want to take it to the next level, that's the kind of thing that I do. About the Cultural Hall, so we started the Cultural Hall 14 years and some change ago, right as podcasts were coming on. I had a friend from the broadcast industry. He was starting to do a podcast, and he was doing his stuff all about like comic books and, all of these kind of things. And I thought, I don't like that at all. What could I do a podcast about? And I thought, well, one of the things I really like to read about or study about or even just talk about is, we always used to just call it Mormon stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to start a podcast, a show about Mormon stuff. And so before we even ever started, a couple of years before we started, I was like, the name for it has to be the Cultural Hall. But someone had already bought the domain, owned it, and I was like, well, I'd really, really, really like to have it. And then I kept bothering that person until a couple of years later, they finally sold me the domain, and thus we became the Cultural Hall Show. So
I love it.
yeah.
Oh, so fun. And my husband introduced me to you through the Cultural Hall show. Cultural Hall show. I can't say it even. It's
It's tricky.
but anyway, it's just been so fun to even just chat with you before we got on and a couple weeks ago. We're just excited to hear from you. So go ahead and just share your story.
Well, I mean, you guys are welcome. I always welcome questions. So if there's anything that you're like, hey, wait, you know, any of that kind of stuff
Yeah,
along the way,
yeah,
feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, my wife will say something like, "You'll never get a word in," so know that you have to interrupt.
got it.
But went to Southern Utah University where I studied theater and dance. After deciding that what I wanted to do was the things that I wanted to do instead of trying like lead a life that someone else wanted me to lead. At you know, towards the latter part of my college experience, I found myself in a position where I was excommunicated from the church. And so from about 2002 till about 2010, I was excommunicated. And then after meeting my first wife and being married, I was able to be rebaptized and then back in full fellowship in 2011, having blessings restored and all of those things. And then since that time, divorced my first wife, met my second wife, who's not a member of the church. A lot of people find mixed faith kind of thing to be difficult. I find it to be awesome. And I think that's where I have landed in some of that. And then just various callings within the church. Most of the time, I'm teaching in some form or fashion. And then, you know, a stepfather of one, a father of a dog, and then just me and my wife, and we do our best every day. And then we get to the end of the day and go, maybe not our best, but we'll try again tomorrow, and then it repeats itself. So
No, we love this. There's a lot of story
sure,
in the summary there. Is there a part of that that you would like to share as far, because on our podcast we talk about some of what is the struggle? How are we staying anchored in Jesus Christ? So
sure.
any of that, would you like to share some of the struggle, some of the how are you staying anchored, some of the questions that you had?
Sure, sure. I would tell you the most difficult thing, or like a point where I would say that I was maybe anchored in. I can remember, you know, going on the Tuesday night to the what used to be called disciplinary councils, and then the announcement was made, "Hey, you're excommunicated." And I remember part of like the wrap up of that council was, you know, hey, um we are encouraging you to not wear your garments anymore, and that, you know, you're still welcome at church and we would love to have you in that fellowship, but like callings, any of those kind of things are going to be kind of taken from you, or you know, you took yourself from them, however you want to phrase that. And I can remember first of all, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna wear for underwear. This is all my underwear. I thought that was kind of a funny thing. I was like, I'm not gonna. This is kind of late tonight. Can I wear them
I even
tonight? And
know,
that
right?
will that be okay if I wear them tonight? But then tomorrow, and I know I sort of laugh about that now. And then that next Sunday, because I was like, you know, I knew that I wanted to be a member of the church and I wanted to have those blessings in my life. I can remember being in the parking lot. This was in a student ward at Southern Utah University, so Cedar City, and I had gotten there on time, and I'm sitting in the car, and there's just this thing within me where I was like, I don't know if I want to go in, right? Like if God doesn't want me to be there because I'm ousted, and should I even? And I can just remember that this was this really just crucial, but maybe the first time that going into church had ever been difficult for me before. And I can just remember like being like, nah, no, I'm not gonna go. No, I should go. I need to be in there, and just completely wrestling with it. Maybe to the point I might have looked like a crazy person in my car. Just being like, nah, you know, kind of. And then I just decided to go in. And I think the reason why I decided to go in is, you know, some people will find themselves without the church because of something within like a faith crisis, or they'll read or they'll study something. Something will come across them on the internet or something like that, and they go, I don't know how I can find my way through that. And that was not the experience that brought me to excommunication. Um, it was a, I know what's true. I know the kind of person that I want to be. I may not have been the person that I wanted to be up to this point, but I feel like this is an important part not only of who I am as a child of God, but also as who I am as far as my family goes, as who I am, as who I want to be. And so I went in, and that was probably the hardest thing, was just finding myself getting out of the car and then going into the church that first Sunday. There were other struggles being someone that you're not really encouraged to participate very much as an excommunicated person. That for a person with a personality like myself was a trial every time I'd come. Would you like to pray? Yes, I would, but I cannot. How come? Well, how much time do you have? Like that was sort of the circumstance that I found myself in, but then
Well,
just
you
continued to
mentioned
persist.
that you there was this time where you're
Hmm.
just like, I don't want to be anyone that anyone has taught me to be. I just want to find myself.
Hmm.
So, was there a time frame that happened before you get to this point where it's just like, I'm sitting in the parking lot, I'm excommunicated, I'm
Right.
waiting to go in there? Like, was there this discovery so that when you were sitting in your car and debating within yourself to
Hmm.
make that choice to go, I am a son of God, what all those things, what was that like? Was there a lot of discovery happening for you?
Yeah, interesting. I would tell you that the discovery came after I made the choice to go into church, and that I think it was just it. Yeah, I got just enough oomph that I was like, and this is basically how I lead my life. My wife and I were talking about this earlier because I might be doing some professional changes, and she's like, sit down and be really insightful and think about through all the things. And I'm like, that is not how I go. I get like the next kind of right thing, and then I sort of figure it out. So I would tell you, uh, like the getting in and going to church was like, oh, okay, this feels good, and I like this. And then in that time when during the time that I was excommunicated, and being like, okay, well, how do I feel not having the opportunity to go to the temple, for instance, or you know, being able to do just simple things like being able to participate in church or be able to teach a lesson, or some of those things. And so I would tell you that, like, for me, the reassurance or the further anchoring, to take your guys' term in this context, was the, oh, I want this so badly, I don't know how long it will take, um, and maybe I'm not quite there yet, but these are the things that I want and I desire. So I'll do the best I can until I can do better than what my best is presently.
I'm just amazed at the surrender that you were able to do,
Hmm.
especially not knowing how long it would take. And every week going in, and here I am and being invited to do things. And then do I explain it? Do I not?
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I kind of worry about what people think. So did
Sure.
you ever deal with that when
Oh,
you
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and of course, at first it was something I was super ashamed of. And so it was like, hey, would you like to say the prayer? No. Right? Or like, yes, but no. Right? And then to me, I found comfort is not the word for what I'm trying to share, but like being able to be more comfortable sharing what I was experiencing and going through. You quickly found that there were more people that were dealing with that than you could have ever imagined. And I don't necessarily just mean church discipline, but people who wanted to pray but couldn't feel like they could because they weren't positive that God even existed. They were maybe pretty sure, but they didn't want to be one thing if they weren't, if they weren't all in, or if they weren't exhibiting what they felt like that should be. And so yeah, for me, I think it was far more like a discovery, a little by little, as opposed to I've made this firm decision and now hell or high water, however long this takes, here we go. It was like, well, it feels good still. Let's keep going. Okay, this is still good. And then finally being able to find my way at the end of that path, that being back in full fellowship, I was like, oh yeah, was a long road, and I'm grateful that I did that.
So how did you with your family and with the people there in the ward, and how did they receive you, and how did you navigate that, trying to feel more comfortable being there? And actually, I mean, I'm thinking about the number of stories that I know, and people are excommunicated or they leave the church or whatever. They don't have any desire to come back because they feel not only the shame, but they also feel like everybody is judging them.
Well, yeah. So I think it's like 1 in 10 that come back after being, I mean, now what we call something far lighter, but it's excommunication. I can't remember what it's called. Membership removed. Um, and I guess I would tell you, like family. Some of my family is no longer within the church, and they just were kind of like, okay, there it is. You know, it was whatever I wanted it to be. If I wanted to go back, they're supportive enough that they would support me in that way. Those that are still active in the church, I think that, you know, I think of my father in particular when, and this is maybe we need to provide some context. So when you have a membership council, I'm not sure if it's still this way, but you used to be able to have people come with you who would essentially be like not character witnesses, but could be able to say, "Oh, hey, if you're thinking about excommunicating this person, maybe you don't know them as well as I do." You know, I know that for my dad, it was really difficult because he felt like he should have done something for me, like that that he should have insisted on coming and being a witness because he knew how the process worked, or something like that, and it brought shame on him. And that, as far as family, that was the only thing that was hard for me, is I was like, no, the things that occurred were things that I did. It's not anything of your fault. It was all my agency, all of this kind of stuff. And so knowing that he was hurt from it, I think was the most difficult thing familially. As far as the church, like attendance at church, and the church as a greater thing, I think that we know really well what to do with non-members, people that are looking into the church. I think that we know how to treat those people really well. I think that probably better today than 20 years ago. We know how to deal with people that are excommunicated, but I don't think that we know how to deal with them very well. And so we kind of go, well, we don't want to pry into what you did, but also you clearly did something that maybe I need to be aware of, or and so it's just very isolating, and where people, to your both of your points, don't typically talk about it a bunch. You feel like you're all alone because no one else is going to be open about it as well. People at church treat you different because they don't know what you did and they don't want to pry and ask you. So you just sort of, you really are left to your own devices. And I think that that's, you know, probably why 90% don't find themselves back in fellowship.
What
And
would have made a difference for you? I mean, if I would love to know, let's say that we are in that situation and there
Sure.
are a number of people in our wards that have been excommunicated or have left the church, but they're still coming maybe because their spouse is there.
Sure.
What advice would you give?
Well, it's the simplest of advices, and it's also the hardest. So simple, not meaning easy, but it's just like, hey, care about people genuinely. And I experienced this with like my wife not being a member of the church as well. We know when people genuinely care about us as a couple and their neighbors and people that attend church, and we can very easily tell when people are like, you know, she'd be a great addition to the ward numbers, or, you know, she has a particular talent that we would love to be able to bring into the fold as far as this goes. It's like, we are people who need to be loved for just being God's children. Let's go there, and then other things can be able to be built. But we, you know, you're able to sniff that out really, really, really quickly. But it's hard if you don't, if you especially so maybe this leads into kind of a second anchoring that I have now. So I'm in a ward now with people that um, are different largely from me politically, and are different from me in like phase of life quite a bit. So I hate that I can classify myself as middle-aged now, but I think I'm
me
middle-aged,
too.
which
I hate it.
I oh, it's
The
that's
worst.
not That's not me. That's those people. But I guess I'm middle-aged. I actually think that that's the first time I've ever said that out loud. So thank you for sharing this space with me. To be
Congratulations
able to
for
do it.
owning that.
Um, but it is difficult to feel so alone when the idea of church, I think, is in, at least in part, I think in large part, this idea of community, of a Zion community helping one another to return to live with our Heavenly Father. Um, and so when I feel like I think differently than people, and that I'm in a different phase of life, and I don't have a spouse that's a member of the church, and so I have all these sort of different things. Though in full fellowship, I can show you, on my phone, the mobile of temple recommend now. Hallelujah, that those things are happening. Welcome to the 21st century. We got it. But like all of those things are common, but there are a few people that are within my ward that I love and cherish so very much. And I think it's just because um they love myself and my wife so very much. But the only downside is they're not going to be with us for a whole lot longer. They are both very, very much older, and I don't know what it takes, why we have to be at that age to just be so careless or fearlessly loving, and to continue to show up and just be like, you know what, I love you so much, it doesn't matter. But it is a thing for me that, like, that is an anchor for me. These two individuals that I'm thinking of in my particular congregation are the example of Christ being like, it doesn't matter. Thank you so much. You are loved. Even when you can't make it, we love you. We think about you. You know, but but there isn't another middle-aged, I'm trying to say it as much as I can so that it feels more comfortable. There isn't another middle-aged person that when I walk in that I feel that from. But it's simple, it's love. I am certain I don't give love like I want to receive it. But that to me is an anchor where I'm like, I know that I'm loved, and these people are able to walk it out for me. But I don't
And
know
that
that I
must be
reciprocate.
powerful enough or strong enough for you to keep going back and
Sure.
still trudging through
Yeah.
every Sunday or whatever, even if people aren't showing that, or at least you're not feeling that from them. And it's just so interesting because you're right. It is a simple thing, just love genuinely, but it's not as simple.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just probably because this is just how Mormons live, this is just what we do.
Right.
But your story is from the beginning, I just think differently.
Yeah.
And I think the blessing for me that I have watched myself try to learn how to genuinely love people without having them fit in the box. My own children teaching me that first of all,
Sure.
but then also other ward members that don't fit in the box, having to evaluate that for myself. How can I do that? And I'm having to turn um, to Heavenly Father in prayer and learn
Sure.
how would He love. I heard once that, and I feel guilt over this, just so you know. But I heard once that, your parents are supposed to be the ones that kind of imitate God's love for you. And
Mm,
I was not that way. As a parent, I was not that way. I was just my way or the highway. You fit this box. This is just what we do. That was my answers to a lot of things when they said
sure.
why. It's interesting that as they leave the nest, they're I'm not going to say floundering, but they're discovering things for themselves that maybe they just didn't feel
Sure.
like that was right, but it was just more of a culturalistic thing that mom and dad were teaching us. And it is a process for us
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
learn how to do that.
I would tell you though, a little bit of grace for you. You were trying to be like, giving that godlike love to your kids, but maybe just Old Testament God instead of like New Testament, a little bit kinder. You're like, nah, sacrifices and all these things. So you were on the right path. Just maybe you needed the New Testament God kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I love that. I just was watching something last week about that. And you're right. I do. I'm trying to embrace the New Testament God. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. So good. So how is this? So yeah, with your wife,
Hmm.
and you're seeing, I'm just curious because we want to just be with our, temple covenants. And how do you navigate the whole sealing and being together forever?
Right. What a great question. It probably deserves some context around that. And I'll spoiler alert it with I don't know, is the answer at the end, but we'll kind of walk from beginning. So
Isn't that
my
all of us? We're all like, I don't know.
yeah,
That's where I am right now. I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't know. So
yeah.
one step at a time.
In my first marriage, it was interesting to me because I wouldn't say that I had like priorities wrong, but I think I was looking through a lens that I was like, oh, this is what this should be or shouldn't be. This is what it needs to be. This is what and um and I can remember having a conversation with my first wife where it was like, hey, do you want to be, sealed together? She had a child, so I have a stepkid, and do you want to be sealed together? And she was like, yes, I do. That is what I want. And I was like, okay. And that like um that out loud promise, or that like affirm affirmation that that's what she wanted, I was like, okay. But what I didn't look at was like any type of behavior on her end, or like anything that would back up that would be actually what she wanted. It was just, I don't want to say lip service, because probably in her heart of hearts that is what she wanted. But then as we got married, because I was like, this is important to you, I'm not there yet, but we can do this together. Hey, are we going to do this together? No, I'm not doing that. I quickly was like, oh, wait a minute, this does not feel like how it should have been. Especially, because in praying about a partner and everything like that, like I got confirmation, like this is the thing, go for it. And so then to come through it and have this person that's like, yes, I'm LDS, and yes, I want to be sealed, and the temple is important, and all these things, and having that be so much a part of why I felt like that was a good partnership and a match for me, only to have it not be. When I went to start dating for a second person, I the priorities that I had got rearranged to where it was: is this person going to love me? Are they going to be supportive of the goals that I have? Are they lovable, and can I be supportive of the goals that they have? And then I sort of turned some of the rest of that over to God, where it's like, yeah, okay, presently and maybe indefinitely, she's not a member of the church. Um, what does that mean about sealing? I think that it stirs people a little bit, but here we go, ladies, let's do it. I think that I would say it is an interesting proposition if my wife and I lead our whole lives together in support of one another, and not only monogamous, but in like being supportive of one another and faith journeys as we find our way until we die. I have a real hard time, um, taking all of that to God and being like, hey, can I be with her? And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, she didn't. And maybe that's false doctrine. Maybe that's a disbelief that allows me to continue. But to me, as part of God's mercy, and even that doesn't feel like the right word to say, part of God's understanding, I just feel like it will be okay, whatever it is.
And
And
there's that faith that always just keeps coming back. And then it's like, I don't know the end from the beginning. It's
right.
this is what I feel today. It feels right. And I'm going to
Yep.
just take the next step forward.
Yep.
Love
Yep.
that.
Richie, what can you teach us about an interfaith marriage? I mean, I
Ooh.
have children that have left the church. I have some that one believes and one doesn't, and I have others where they both have left the church, and one that is considering is actually interested in somebody who is a member and they're not. Well, they are,
Yep.
but they don't. They don't
Yeah.
believe any longer.
Well, I mean, from a very base level, just love everyone, right? I would imagine, as parents of children, like if our kids are lumberjacks, or if our kids are, monks in a monastery, like we still love them because they're our kids. So there's that base level of love, but sort of wiping that aside, because I think we although I know we don't all understand that the same way. Hopefully we can come to that level of understanding. The thing that I personally love about the mixed faith marriage that I have is that my wife is the most integritous person that I've ever met. And so, um, which isn't to say that I don't have integrity, but there are lots of times where she will she will ask, "Well, why is it that you do that?" Right? And sometimes it's little things like hey, we're cleaning the church on Saturday morning and they need an extra hand and it's super early and I'm tired. I was working late last night and I'm going to go and do that. Sometimes it's things like that. And other times it's things like 10% of the money that you make is leaving our household as a tithe to the church. Why do you do that? And I think that the lessons learned are a couple fold. One is I love that her integrity and her asking the question allows me to not just rinse and repeat, which I think we're so good at. Well, I checked the box, and then the next month I'm going to check the box, and then the thing, and then we do it, and it just becomes a thing. Um, that they are good things, but they can be found greater if we recognize the intention of what the sacrament is about, of why we're paying our tithing, of why we minister to other people, rather than just, I've got the list, I do the list, it is the list, it's a new list, and there we go. So I think that there's something with that. And then I think the other like lesson to be learned or thing to be shared or that I could teach you, I guess that sounds odd for me to say that I could teach you, but I think it's no different than any other like part of a marriage, right? Your husband or your wife goes to work and you need to support them, and maybe you don't love what they do, or you don't understand why they do it. They could make so much more money doing something else, but they choose to do this thing. And you have conversations around it and you try and learn more about, who they are. And in a lot of times, our spouses can help us, be accountable. Like, hey, you told me you were a person that this. Are you going to show up and be the person that, or are you not going to? Oh yeah, because I don't care. I don't need you to do it. I don't want you to, you don't have to pay 10%. If it's up to me, don't pay 10%. Keep it for us. And she's not like that, for the record, but it does just serve as like another communication point, another check and balance, another um unique perspective that for me that I love being able to bring that as part of my faith and part of my worship, because I can go, yeah, not everyone does this, and not everyone is critical of things or thinks about why would I do this. Some people just show up and do it, and I don't begrudge those people necessarily that just show up and do the thing. I think that that's a way to do it, but to me, I find deeper meaning and value when I go, I am doing this thing, and I know why I am doing this thing.
And I can appreciate that because in 2020, when we were all in lockdown and we weren't
Mhm.
going to church and we would go on drives and anyway, why didn't I go shopping on Sunday or as
Right?
we're going, and I had to ask myself that. And so since then, for the past 5 years, that's what I've been asking myself is, why am I going to church? Why am I wearing the garment? Why, checks and
Mhm.
balance like you're talking about, which is a great thing to do, I think, just for personal. Um, but it was interesting about 2 months ago, I'm sitting there before it was fast and testimony meeting and listening to the prelude, just preparing myself for whatever's going to happen in sacrament meeting. And the spirit just spoke to me and just said, you know what? It's okay to just check off the boxes.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, that was interesting because for 5 years I had been on this bandwagon of just like, I need to really understand that. But, and then in the middle of sacrament meeting, the spirit saying, you need to get up there and talk about that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what? I don't even, so I did. And what was interesting is even the comments that I made, I don't even know what I said, were even carried over in Sunday school the next hour.
Hmm.
Something, so the Spirit directed me to say that because it
Sure.
touched people's hearts and for whatever reason. But I think it just goes to show that the Lord knows us so individually.
Yeah.
And even though I don't want to sit there and say I'm checking off the boxes, it's okay to check off the boxes, which gives me some compassion for those people who do check off
Sure.
boxes, and that it's okay. And the Lord is okay with that. Because honestly, checking off boxes is what I've done for most of my life. And it's gotten me to where I am. So
Sure.
obviously it's okay. And I think that's what it is the Lord is always just wanting us to learn to love genuinely, like you're talking about. And if this experience is what I needed personally, so that I can love and show compassion to everybody, then that's what I needed. But it's okay because I don't know how to just flip off the judgment glasses, you know, of people. I don't know how to do that. It's like different colored lenses keep happening every time I go to church or whatever. And but he's teaching me along the way. And I think that's the important thing in
Yeah.
recognizing that everybody is just literally, they're on their own journeys and God is in relentless pursuit of every
Yeah.
single person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
So go ahead, Steph.
Good. So, okay. So you were away from the church for 12 years. Is that what you said?
It was
Or
about
eight?
10, almost 10,
Almost 10 years.
Mhm.
Okay, so you went through that entire process. You were endowed before you were excommunicated, right?
Correct.
And then you went through marriage number one and you're in marriage number two. And so you have all of these things that we can see that are kind of interwoven. But my question is, where have you seen God show up in your journey?
Well, so let me tell you a couple just quick stories. I don't know that I'm terribly deep as far as God and God's faith goes, except that like I know that He's right there. And here, so let's go through a couple stories. When I was like 10, maybe 12, we had borrowed my grandparents' bicycle built for two, a tandem bicycle. We'd taken it down to the Jordan River, and this was what my grandparents went on dates with when they were very young. It was a family heirloom. A cousin of mine, who's now no longer with us, we had left it and kind of played by the river, came back, and the bike was gone, and someone had taken it. And it was a thing where I was devastated. And though my grandparents trying to save face at their devastation were also very devastated. And I can remember that being the first time that we prayed, Heavenly Father, help us find this bike. We're driving away. I'm in tears because I've disappointed everyone. And I remember looking on the side of the road. If you've ever tried to ride a tandem bicycle with just one person, the back end wobbles a bunch. And I see this guy riding a tandem bicycle. I said, "That's it. That's the bike right there." My dad gets out, has this odd confrontation with someone who has clearly stolen the bike or taken a bike that wasn't theirs, at very least, and said, "Son, will you write it back to the grandparents?" And I can remember like riding that bicycle and just being like the proudest thing, but also being like, God answers my prayers and I'm riding the bicycle, right? And so like that to me, it was like God answers prayers. Simple, done. I now know I have never questioned, does God answer my prayers? Now, sometimes it's like, nah, God, come on, something else, please. Can it be not this answer, or can we do this? But there hasn't been a time of doubt for that since then. Fast forward, I served my mission in the Ohio Cleveland mission, and we were super struggling with finding some people to teach. And I can remember that because I was and people that can't see us because if they're just listening, I air quotes, I was the leader, I was the senior companion, I was getting us where we needed to be. I knew the bus system. We found ourselves on a bus and it was the wrong bus, and it was one of these express buses that you just couldn't get off of. They don't stop. And we started talking to this woman on the bus and sharing with her about the Book of Mormon, and this was not the bus we were supposed to be on at all. It was actually we were like, we're in someone else's zone right now and we're breaking all the rules. But it was an accident. We teach her the gospel and don't hear from her ever again because she's lived somewhere else. fast forward 6 months later, we're in a stake conference, and this woman is telling the story about how she met elders on a bus and is able to do it, and she was converted to the faith. And so I think, like, from that experience, I just was like, God, in the mistakes that occur, guides us to people and people to us that we need. And sometimes we go, I don't understand it. And sometimes we go, I don't know what ever happened to those people. And sometimes, we get those blessings of being able to do it. But I've never questioned that, like, as my life is led, so long as I'm trying to do the best that I can, like, it's going to be fine. But I just don't know what fine is. I don't know what it's going to look out to be. So I've never sort of questioned that. Those are very, like, basic things, but they are enough for me that sometimes when I'm at church and someone says something, on a fast and testimony meeting, that I go, I don't think that's right. In fact, I would dare say you should not have said that. And, anything like that, like, I can be able to find my way through it and just be like, okay, that happened. I can get worked up about it, and hear me loud and clear. Sometimes I do get very worked up about it, but it's not ever a thing that I'm like, oh, I'm not ever coming and doing this again. It's just, I'm going to do the next right thing. Maybe that person needs to meet someone that doesn't think like they do to have a different perspective or something like that. I just am able to keep going that way. And those are very simple anchor points, but because I feel like I have really attached to them, um, like, I don't feel like there's a lot of tossing maybe, but I'm not ever going to get off course. I don't know, you get be on course with an anchor, but hopefully that the example I'm trying to say sets, like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be without the faith because of what I know, what I feel, and what I want within those anchor points.
Well, when Elder Karen just says, when you just really understand that you are a child of God and that God is there, one of your anchor points, it
Hmm.
changes your whole paradigm. So you
Sure.
live your life totally different when you can feel the thrill of it, as he says, the comfort and the thrill of it. So I just, those are your guiding principles that you just live by that. I was just in Fast and Testimony meeting yesterday, and
Hmm.
we had a storyteller. Back to World War II stories. But I, once again, started getting worked up, and I'm like, rolling my eyes or whatever. And so that's when I have to lean in and I say, Heavenly Father, what do you want me to do here? Because I don't know where this is going. Literally, he told me, just listen,
Mm.
just listen. And that's one of my guiding points where I was like, I just have to turn to him in prayer and just find out what would he have me do, because my natural man of Roseanne is not going to be the most loving person all the time. And so I have to just lean in and find out, what would you do? Because I feel like I'm constantly just being taught
Mm.
how to be a loving parent or a human or a church member or whatever. And that's just
Yeah,
my journey too. But we all have our anchor points, whatever
sure.
they are.
Yeah.
Awesome. So good. Well, gosh. So you're telling me you don't have any struggles. Those are your two anchor points, and you don't have any struggles where
Oh,
you have
oh,
to
come
lean
on.
in
Oh,
and
come on.
really find out what God has for you today.
No, I mean, plenty of struggles. How much time do we got? uh, so, man, where do you go? Struggles. The struggles for me, I think that they sort of come and go. I, one of the things that causes me a lot of, grief, I guess, within the church or about the church or with members of the church is that, it kind of going back to that, like, box thinking, or thinking like members of the church need to be a particular way. I can remember I was very early in this ward, and someone was talking about in a Sunday school class about how that they loved that everyone in the tabernacle choir was dressed the same and wore the same jewelry, and all of those things, and um and they equated that to, like, what heaven would be like. And I was like, I cannot sit here and sit through this. And so I raised my hand and I said, or that's a choir and a performance, and God, loves it when there are brown and black and white and all these people who are doing the best that they can. And I you, I know I in that particular moment I was not that great about just passionately sharing what my opinion was. And at the end, and this is not at all why I did it, but there were two people uninvolved with each other who, when I got done speaking, were like, "Yes, yes," and that isn't why I was doing it. It was genuinely just because I felt so against what that particular person, not against, yeah, I guess against what that particular person was saying, that I just was like, "No, I don't think that's how that is," and so stuff like that is super struggly for me. Political stuff in church I have no place for, and to be clear, the brethren don't have the place for it either, but yet there we are, we continue to do it. We all know who we should vote for, right? And it's like, please don't do that to me, because those are the things that I just go, I I don't know how to approach that. I don't know how to come alongside that. I can't, you know, in a gospel in a church that teaches so much of agency, when we sort of wink our agency and go, well, agency, but we're all going to do this, right? It's like, no, it's agency, genuine agency. Why are we trying to corrupt it?
And when
I think,
literally we just had this huge lesson on spiritual gifts
yes.
and how that makes it up. I would love to know, because of your response, I would love to know, what does Zion look like?
Oh,
Truly.
geez. So to me, genuinely, uh, I think it is far more people than we think. And I think it's every kind of person. There are certain things within the church, um, you know, uh, a lot of people I think struggle with where to place LGBTQ people and everything around that. And it's a thing for me that, like, I could not be more 180 degrees than where I was 30 years ago as far as that goes. And I just think that God is like, I'd like you, and I'd like you as well, and you'll be there, and you, if you're willing to come and be along with us. And I think so many times, um, that people want to us and them people, you're not us, you're them. Well, I can feel this way and I can treat you that way because you this. And I think for a lot of people that kind of black and white approach things, I think that's a super difficult place for them, pun intended, to see the rainbow of things. And I just think that that's how God is, because he literally creates people so very different. And so, yeah, I mean, Zion to me is, it's everyone doing whatever part they can. And there are some heavy lifters, and there are some people that are like, I don't know how to do tomorrow, but I guess I can show up this way today. And then they make it through the day and they can have hope for, more tomorrow, or the same tomorrow. And in a week it's more, or maybe it's never more, but they can continue to go along that way.
I
That's my Zion.
that's just a beautiful testimony. And just to appreciate, sorry, do you hear the lawnmower out there?
I don't hear it.
Okay. So anyway, I'm like, do I even unmute to ask this question? So no, but the perspective that you have is just opening my mind. And I think that's what I appreciate about this conversation today, is I think it's going to help our listeners too, is just open our mind to other ways of thinking, but not only how other people think, but maybe give permission to those of us who might not think exactly what's being said all the time, and just
Sure.
really ask ourselves and be okay with not thinking exactly in the box. And I appreciate that for your perspective and permission to do that. So Richie, with that,
Yeah.
all the things that you've shared, why do you choose to stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Well, knowing this question was coming, I thought of a lot of different responses to this. And so maybe it's mixed, because I was like, oh, yeah, you could say. And then I was like, I don't know that that's the whole of it. So here is my best attempt at answering. I wish that I didn't know the question was coming, because then I couldn't overthink it. But in the king of overthinking, here we go. I would tell you that I remain a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because it is a place that I have stepped, at least in part, away from, and have recognized the blessings and the betterment of my life when I live my life according to the things that the doctrine and that the prophets teach. It does not mean that, in some ways, the living my life without some of those guidelines or regulations wasn't so much easier, but I can tell you, above and beyond anything that I could ever imagine, the way that I feel as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the way that I feel that I'm able to impact others, be impacted by others, it is not at all the same as when I was not a member of the church. And so, extremely grateful for being baptized at 8. I want to be very clear. I don't think that people should go out and have their membership withdrawn so that they can have a great perspective and be able to be like, oh, now I see what he's talking about. I don't encourage that. But I think that it is worth asking the question of yourself, why is it that I continue to do it? Just like you guys asked. And if they don't know the answer, to really wrestle with it and go, well, why? Well, why? Almost like that annoying kid, right? We've all had that annoying kid that's 5. Why? And you're like, shut up. I don't know. If we can annoy and kid ourselves and really find to an answer, it may be different for every single one of us. In fact, I think that it is, but there is a reason that you have it, that you do it. And for me, it's just my life is better because of my membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want a better life.
It is so beautiful. Thank you so much. You've really touched my heart. I have a child who is LGBTQ, and I have, these children that have left, and I've seen the culture of the church, that where it has maybe been a little too black and white, and therefore pushes people out that God would not be thrilled with, for them
No,
being pushed out. And so bless you. Thank you for sharing your message, your testimony, your heart, and for being so vulnerable with us. We loved having you on the podcast today.
oh, thank you.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in and listening to Richie's story. So grateful for him and grateful for you as listeners. And we just encourage you, if you have a story, to reach out to us at anchoredpodcast.net. We would love to hear your story, love to hear your faith, love to hear the challenges of where you're leaning into your faith and your covenants. Until next time, bye-bye.